Greetings and welcome to another exciting edition of Poet to Poet. I'm Robert Dunn. I'm still hosting and I'm still wandering around Easton, Pennsylvania, meeting people who are truly worth meeting. And boy, have I got one for you today. Len Roberts, who, well, I don't know basically how to describe him to you. This is his bio. It's bigger than our magazine. This bio. It's, you name it, he's done it. He's got a PhD in English from Lehigh University. How far away is Lehigh from here?
About 8 miles.
8 miles, huh? Yeah, this is... Oh, this, by the way, is Lafayette College, and we're in the Farranon Student Center, or Student Hall, depending on which way you approach it. There's a photo up back here, a rather painting of the Farranon, William B. and P.T. I'm not quite sure which is which, but that's how it goes sometimes. Anyway, getting back to Len Roberts, has several books. Let's see what we have here. We have Counting the Black Angel. We have Black Wings. Detecting a pattern here, I think.
that's
As a matter of fact,
that's my latest.
How to Win at Blackjack. No, just kidding. The Troublemaking Finch. Yes, I've had a number of them in my neighborhood. As a matter of fact, that's why the car wash does.
That's right.
Does such a land office business. What other titles do you have?
The Sweet Ones.
Mm-hmm.
I have Dangerous Angels.
Yeah.
Filling that pattern again.
Mm-hmm.
Cohoes Theater. Cohoes is the town I grew up in.
That's in New York, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
New Yorker.
Somewhere near Albany. Let's see. You've done a number of magazines that most of us would give our eye teeth for. The American Poetry Review, the Hudson Review, the Paris Review. A lot of traveling, huh? Partisan Review, Poetry, Southern Review. You seem to highlight the reviews a lot, as opposed to some of the other magazines like Poetry Australia.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Probably gives it that formal sound, right?
Well, we'll hold that over for a formal review a little later in the program. Let's see, anthologies too. How does one get into an anthology? Practice. Besides that,
I've been asked most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Identity lessons, learning American style, an anthology of contemporary writing. Penguin.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did you have to teach them how to swim?
Actually, I was reading at the Dodge Festival, and someone, the editor of that anthology was there, and then after the reading asked me to send some.
See, mathematics science anthology.
Strange, yeah. Milkweed is putting that out. I've
known very few poets who were any good at mathematics, myself included. Bless Me, Father.
Catholic.
Uh-huh.
Catholic background.
Odd Angels of Heaven.
More Catholicism.
Do the Odd Angels have anything to do with the Dangerous Angels?
Well, they're all connected.
Yes, it's a very strong union, as I understand. The Best American Poetry, 1992. Hey, Pushcart Prize. Mm-hmm. What do you keep in your pushcart?
All of my books.
Uh-huh. All right. We'll do some more of the bio in a little moment, but I'd like to get a poem in.
Good.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the point of all this.
This is one of my favorite poems.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Moment, and it's written for my son Joshua. Leonard Roberts. When I wanted, I married a woman who had 2 children already, and when I wanted to have my son or daughter, I had to sign a contract. I would watch him for 2 years, the first 2 years, because she was working full time, I wasn't. And this is about that punishment and the rewards. It's called The Moment. Walking the 3 tiers in first light, out here so my 2-year-old son won't wake the house. I watch him pull and strip ragweed, chicory, yarrow, so many other weeds and wildflowers I don't know the names for, saying big and mine and Joshua, words, words, words. Then it is the moment, that split second when he takes my hand, gives it a tug, and I feel his entire body weight, his whole heart weight, pulling me toward the gleaming flowers and weeds he loves. That moment which is eternal and is gone in a second, when he yanks me out of myself, like some sleeper from his dead dream's sleep, into the blues and whites and yellows I must bend down to see clearly, into the thoughtless flesh of his soft hands, into his new brown eyes, the miracle of him and of the earth itself, where he lives among the glitterings and takes me.
Mm-hmm. And did you win your wife with those bouquets?
I wrote that after I punished myself for 2 years.
Oh. Whoops! I must have. I think I just stepped in something. But you married a woman with 2 children, and I married a woman with 2 heads. She had me coming and going.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
quite
a tough
bit.
spot.
Yes, I can imagine. It's. I'd rather have 2 heads on a coin, but that's another. Sorry, that's from my Vegas days. Let's see, translations you've done.
From the Hungarian.
Hungarian. Yes, so I see. Is Hungarian your specialty?
Well, it wasn't, but I was a Fulbright scholar to Hungary in '88, and I had a whole year, and I had very little to do, so I tried learning the language and translating a very good political poet, Sándor Csordi.
What does he do? Csordi is pronounced?
Csordi.
Csordi.
Yes, it's Csordi.
Okay.
Well, he was the head of the major political party just before the communist system fell, so he was a very powerful anti-communist figure.
And still had time to write poetry.
Great poetry. Many critics, Hungarian and otherwise, consider him to be the preeminent Hungarian poet living today.
Can you recall any of the poetry offhand, either in Hungarian or English?
Titles, you mean?
Well, I was hoping you could quote him a little.
Oh, no. I can't even quote myself.
Well.
I don't.
And
I'm not one of those.
You can you disavow all this in Hungarian?
I could.
Give us a little Hungarian, because we try to get a little foreign language in wherever we can.
Yo napok kívánok.
Was that friendly or unfriendly?
It was friendly.
I don't.
How are you doing?
Oh, all right. Yeah, I suppose that's safe enough. Let's see. So you've done a couple of translation books then.
I have one full book of his translations. Copper Canyon did that in '92. His selected poems in English, and then I have a chapbook of his translations also.
Did he cooperate in the translations?
Not at the beginning. At the beginning, people just filtered his poems to me and read them to me, gave me recordings of his voice with the poems, and then I went on my own.
Did you ever get any feedback from him?
Yeah, I did. After the book was published, of course, he was paid some money for it.
That must have made him happy.
Well, dollars in Hungarian currency is quite a nice thing. And so he wrote to me and said he was very pleased, and the usual.
That's good to know. You have a list of magazines that you've had translations in. The Literary Review, the Kenyan Review. Here we go again with the reviews. Translation, Poetry East. Were they all translations of Csordi?
No. In fact, I have a manuscript, 8 modern Hungarian women poets that I'm just about finished with. I'm sending it out.
That must be a handful.
8 Hungarian women.
I know what it's like trying to deal with 8 of the domestic product at any given time, but
they're great poets. The Hungarian language is suitable for poetry.
And you write articles
when I have to. I prefer writing poetry.
If you prefer poetry, what motivates you to write articles? Is it a requirement of your doctorate?
No, that's long past. But sometimes, for the Csordi book, I had to write a lengthy introduction to his work, and then poets I like, if I really like them and have an insight, like Jerry Stern, I really like his work, so I wrote an article about his texts, things that interest me.
All right, I think we're due for another poem.
Okay. All right.
I'm spending a lot of time on the bio because I've never had one like this. It's something we'd kill for.
Well, talking about killing, this poem is along that vein. I mentioned Catholicism. I've written a lot of poems from my grade school and high school Catholic school experiences, and I use what the nuns used to say to us. I try to use those great lines in the poems. This is the first poem of Counting the Black Angels. Of course, the Catholic cover. Right?
Okay.
St. Michael and Satan weighing the souls. It's called We Sat So Patient. We sat so patient in the third grade class, learning the numbers of days, weeks, months, repeating the numbers as they flashed in the air, forming the curved 3, the angular 4, the easy 1. Counting the raindrops that wiggled down the gray window, counting the hearts and cars on our desks, our crayons, Ann Harding and Richie Freeman making 2, 10 on each side for the spelling bee, counting silent seconds when Sister Thomas said 5 of us would not reach 20, showed the chart where children dropped off into 0, the blue zone of no return that Jimmy Legacy whispered, making us laugh. Looking around, I thought Al Alden, Jackie Shuster, Margaret Blake, who already coughed blood on her gold glasses when she spoke, or the thin girl just come over from Germany, and Ray Martineau, who had no lunch, the zigzagged white lines of lice forming mazes on his crew-cut head, and perhaps the good sister herself, number 6, at least 40 years older than us, her rosary beads clicking as she walked down the aisle like the angel of death, black wings spread, brushing our faces, our arms, wafting blackness into our eyes, our lungs, our hearts, reminding us that God was watching and could tell who knew 9 times 9, 144 divided by 12, telling us it was God's will that we die. Jimmy Gleason pulling up his white sock on a leg he would not have 10 years later. Barbara McGill raising her hand with another correct answer, the same hand so whitish blue as she lay in her 8th grade coffin. Jimmy Amiot and Donald Wilcox quietly passing drawings of women back and forth, the car they would die in revving, unheard in that classroom where we yelled out 360, 225, 32, 0, 10, waiting for the split-second flash of red, yellow, and blue cards beneath the slow, steadily clicking clock.
That's such an ominous vision.
Angel of death, black angels.
I'll say, what was the sister trying to prove with that?
Well, she was right. I found out in my maturity that actually the odds are, if you're in 2nd or 3rd grade, around that age, that 1/4 of the people in that period of time would die. And she had to let us know that, being a good Catholic nun. So that we could be ready, you see, for redemption. Confess our sins and always be ready for that moment of death.
And keep up the payments, yes.
Whatever.
Do you have a poem that's a bit more
lighter
affirmative? Not necessarily lighter, but at least more affirmative.
Sure, I have several. This is...
Otherwise, people will start watching Robin Bird again. It's like
this is a poem about young love. And I can remember when I was in 8th grade spending so much time on the telephone. I watch my kids now and I try to understand, okay, it's all right because I did it too. So this poem is about all those love moments, minutes I spent on the telephone. It's called Talking on the Telephone. 30 years later, I try to remember the telephone number back on Olmsted Street. I see the black bass and speaker I took into the cold hallway those long winter nights. I talked to all the girls I loved. Inside the warm kitchen, my mother and father whispered. Now and then the click of dishes set into the sink, the pop as the top snapped off another Schaefer's bottle. But out there it was wind drafting under the front door, finding its way up the stairs to where I would sleep. Wind coming in from the back, too, down the long corridor with its one dim light. Hello, Mary. Hello, Suzanne. Dee Dee with the blue Angora sweater. How are you tonight? I wish you were here. And then the drifters started to sing, Save the Last Dance for Me. My feet propped against the dark wallpaper, my nose and hands chilled, growing numb while their voices flowed into my warm ear. bit happier.
Yes. And did you get a lot of dates with a line like that?
No, I spent all my time on the phone. They never met me in person.
Actually, we do that now. It's nowadays. Nowadays, it's considered a lot safer and very socially acceptable.
We're on the computer, right? We're doing on the computer. My son's on the computer the way I used to be on the phone.
Yes, but you can still get a virus on the computer.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, let's talk about your awards, because there are a lot of them.
I've been lucky.
I'm fascinated by the Fulbrights. The Fulbright Scholar Award to teach modern and contemporary American poetry at the University of Turku in Finland.
Well, my first Fulbright Scholar Award was to Hungary for a full year, and my family and I went.
Right.
And it was a great experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Fulbright Poetry Translation Award, it says.
No,
here.
that was to Romania and Moldavia later in '91. The first one was in '88. Then I had the translation award in '91.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I mean, you got three Fulbrights, and it's easy to mix them up, at least until we get used to you.
I've been lucky. And then in '94, because we liked the experience so much in '88 and '91, we went to Finland.
More for Hungary, the Soros Foundation Poetry Translation Awards. Who or what was Soros?
George Soros. She's the billionaire on the stock market now. He's probably a double billionaire now.
I'm blowing these pronunciations right and left here because the alphabet doesn't match up.
Do you know the name though, Soros? He's big. He's big on Wall Street, and he's Hungarian of Hungarian descent, so he gives all this money for Hungarian cultural.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not big on Wall Street. Otherwise, I'd probably have more books out. Let's see, something a little close to the home. The Pennsylvania Council on the Arts Writing Awards.
Yeah, they've been nice to me.
What does the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts normally sponsor? How do they operate?
Well, it's a contest, you know, and it's biannual now, and you submit poems, and they usually select 7 to 10 people poets throughout the state that they give money to help promote your writing.
Right. National Poetry Series Award for Black Wings. That's
I'm happy.
That's this one over here, by the way.
Sharon Ode selected that.
Oh, really?
In 1988.
Who sponsors National Poetry Series?
That's it, National Poetry Series.
Oh, is it?
And they select 5 books a year nationally for the award.
The Great Lakes and Prairies Award.
Sweet Ones.
For Sweet Ones.
Won that one.
How do you feel about admitting more lakes to the Great Lakes chain?
I love lakes. I love lakes.
They wanted to put Lake Champlain in.
I'm French Canadian too, so I'm all for it.
Recently, if they change it to Lake Champlain, I think they might have a better shot at it. But all right. How about another poem?
Sure.
One of the award winners, perhaps?
Well, We Sat So Patient was one. Let me
show off. Go ahead.
Let me read something. Well, no. Let me read something from the newer book. I've always been very interested. I think as many modern American poets, contemporary American poets are in Chinese poetry, ancient Chinese poetry, and so I've worked very hard to try to get some references to those ancient Chinese poets in a poem, and I think it works here. This is called "Contemplating Again the Jade Chrysanthemum," or "Why the Ancient Chinese Poets Remained Unmarried." So it's a blend of the ancient Chinese poetry and all of our lives, and how we could possibly be married and still continue writing, which is so difficult. Okay. Contemplating Again the Jade Chrysanthemum, or Why the Ancient Chinese Poets Remained Unmarried. Cast out of the house again, fuming at my wife, my teenage son who has come back from his previous life, barely disguised as a pig who drops underwear, socks, books, video games, anywhere. I keep repeating it's no wonder the ancient Chinese poets remained unmarried during their walks of 10,000 miles and river rides of 10,000 sorrows. I try to imagine Tu Fu watching Kung Sung dance with 2 swords, teaching him the black art of calligraphy with a wife jabbing him in the ribs, whispering for him to keep his eyes to home. She knows he's not contemplating the jade chrysanthemum or the deep heart of the emerald. Those are boobs he's looking at. He's not kidding anyone. Or I think of Li Po raising his cracked blue jug to the moon while his cracked boy blasts another monster rock video 3 rooms away. Or Po Chu-yi driven to chew ferns because he couldn't balance the budget. Or Emperor Wu of the Han listening to tales of the spirit world, trying to prolong his life despite his children's tuition being due. Me fingering a list of 100 chores to finish this spring as I watch smoke rise from the chimney a good half-mile down there. Serpent coiled with tail and mouth a few seconds above our house before the north wind from the hill blows it apart. That serpent is the ancient Chinese symbol, tail and mouth of eternity.
Yes. Well, I must say that certainly sounds like doing much better than the river merchant's wife that Pound came up with.
I love that poem, though. Don't you love that poem?
Yeah.
Isn't that a wonderful poem?
Yes, I always wanted to hit him over the head, but I do enjoy that poem. Speaking of enjoying poetry, we're just so totally impressed with it all that we are. I'm going to do a quick shameless plug of our own here. That we are assembling a centerpiece of Len for our own magazine, Medicinal Purposes. Yes, we still have that, and we're very excited about this because it could only make us look fantastic.
Well, I'm happy. I'm very happy to be in it.
Just by having you in there. It also occurs to me that the reason that the ancient Chinese poets stayed unmarried was something else that you said earlier, because they spend all their time on the phone.
Oh.
As you're saying, it's a possibility.
It's long distance.
Maybe, perhaps I could get a Fulbright to study that. Let's explore some of the other books, if we can.
Sure. Well,
I'm interested in your latest one, the Troublemaking Finch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I've been writing. My son has given me a lot of material for poems. Watching him grow. And this poem is about, it's a very simple, short poem. It's about watching him make snowmen, but suddenly, he was 12 years old when I saw him do this, and suddenly, there's an act in this poem that demonstrated to me his turn from childhood into adolescence. And the title of the poem is the first line of the poem. My son won't stop making, and there's a pun in that making. My son won't stop making them. Snowmen of all sizes. One a good 5 feet tall down by the pond, a small one by the garage. My son's gloves on the snowboy's fingerless hands, his Chicago Bulls wool cap on the bald head, and on the north side of the barn, a snow woman. 2 snowballs smushed on as breasts, gravel bits as nipples, a mop for hair flowing over her pure white shoulders. My son standing there right now, finishing her off, a black scarf, red plastic circle for a heart, long red plastic strips for lips. He suddenly leans forward to kiss in the below zero howling wind.
Oh gosh, he couldn't get a date either, could he?
Well, he's 12. He's just breaking in. He's practicing.
I see. Let's hold up the cover for a moment so people will know what to look for.
Troublemaking Finch.
Yes.
There's a wing here.
Okay. That's not a printing problem then.
No, that's the wing coming out of the darkness.
Okay. Can we get something else?
Certainly. Yeah. Another one for my son?
Sure. Why not? If he won't mind.
He loves it. He loves it. And again, in this book, I've been trying to get more ordinary circumstances into my poems. Mm-hmm. So when you're driving down the road, you often see those shoes or sneakers in the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what this is about. And again, the title is the first line. A shoe in the road, autumns. A shoe in the road, autumn's first leaf here in Wassergasse, and my son asks in his small voice, where, why, whose? To the drum roll of a gold-red sun that's richer than the fresh cold we open our windows to. My shaking head and shrugging shoulders not good enough as he looks back to watch it lie there, still on the yellow line of the curve. Like a dead squirrel, he offers, trying to help, or a groundhog, a chipmunk, a skunk. A litany of the dead he's seen on this ride back and forth to school where they don't talk of what he's already sensed. A shoe with a missing foot, something to be reckoned with. and the hands that laced it up, and the brains, and the eyes, and the heart.
All right. Not meaning to shortchange your son or anything like that. I'd like to show off some of the other books. We have a moment.
Sure. Oh, here, I might as well show the good copies. This is Black Wings.
Yeah.
Won the National Poetry Series.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That we've
Dunn the
seen.
Finch.
Right.
This is my favorite cover. Counting the Black Angels.
The Catholic influence you were discussing.
And this is St. Michael and St. Wayne, the Sows. And of course, the Sows heavy with sin go to hell.
Yeah.
This is Sweet Ones. My third book, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And this is Dangerous Angels, published in '93.
Okay. You also teach, I believe.
I do. I teach a lot.
What do you tell your students? Do you teach writing courses or?
I teach a lot of composition. I teach a lot of literature, but I do teach every year. I teach a poetry workshop.
And what do you tell your students?
I tell them to write as much as they can, but all the time to be reading good poets. I give them a list of anthologies for them to browse through the anthologies and select the poems they love and to read the poets they love.
All right. Can we do another poem?
Sure. I'd love to. Another springtime, another dollar. I wonder as I drive from one job to another, how many more hours, honest to God alive hours I have left. How many more Christmases I will buy the unnecessary gifts. How many more summers limit myself to 2 weeks vacation on a lake when that's all I'd like to do with my life. Held up at the tracks, I watched the B&O line, the L and N, the Lackawanna, the Reading, the rusted metal wheels clickety-clacking like mad days on the shining steel, while behind me automobiles pile up, one driver blowing his horn as though there were some other way across.
Len Roberts, you've dazzled us. Thanks for coming on Poet to Poet, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.